What's going on, guys? It's the 5 Yard Pass podcast with me, Suri, and this is Sham. We've come off some crazy upsets. So not just in the league with Liverpool. I mean, even Madrid losing to, I think, a university side. We had a crazy few days of football. We've had 3 Premier League leaders in the space of, I think it was about 6 hours. So 3 games. So about 6 hours of 3 Leicester, City, and then United taking it. And then now we have a new team in 4th, Liverpool as well. So it's everyone's just changing. It's a dynamic league at the minute. I will start with where the league ended off this round: Liverpool versus Burnley.
So what was I missed that game? What was the score?
So 1-0. Ashley Barnes. A time at the time. No. Actually, after 68 games at Anfield, they finally lost. Jokes aside, I'll put
68 games is pretty impressive, isn't it?
I'll put the serious points forward of the game first. So there's a couple of talking points before I get you to comment, Sham. First for me was Divock Origi hitting the post, the crossbar, excuse me. Well, what he should have scored, he should have kept it simple. The second point was, I actually personally think Fabinho should have been sent off at the end of the first half. It looked like he kicked, I think it's Ben Mee. It looked like he kicked out to him. I don't know why he didn't get sent off. Fair enough.
Who scored the penalty? It was that fella who scored the penalty, wasn't it?
Sorry, it was Ashley Barnes. It was the guy who scored the penalty. Sorry, it wasn't Ben Mee. And then we get to absolutely. I mean, we get to the penalty, which, funnily enough, on first glance I thought it wasn't a penalty because you're a keeper. I mean, you give me your opinion on this in a second, but he's come out. He's actually not touched him with his hands, but his knees have followed through. Who I think was Robbie Brady. His knees have followed through, and he's taken him. So it ended up, there didn't seem to be much contest. Although Jurgen Klopp did kind of allude to, maybe it wasn't a penalty, but I don't know anyone else who hasn't said it wasn't. But look, we end off with the first game we're talking about today. Ashley Barnes scores and Liverpool lose 1-0. I can't hide my happiness, because it's something I've said for a while. I've said Liverpool for various reasons. I won't get into. I said that Liverpool will run out of steam, and I did. They're not bad players. You just can't play at the level you've played for the last, I'd say, 3 seasons. Hold on, including this, a 3rd season. You can't maintain Klopp levels.
The reality is always going to come back, wasn't it? But the question was how far, and how far would other teams rise to potentially knock them off the top. So the reality is that halfway through the season they're in 4th. And I don't think anybody picked that. If you thought, that Nick, still being, just off the top, fine. But they are 6 points off the lead. And considering they were, I think, 18, 19 points clear or something like that. I think it's a 19 point turnaround. Sorry. It's a 19 point turnaround from where they were.
Yeah, it is. And it's a good point, actually. It's not just that, it's how far they've fallen that's interesting. And I say this because this summer, I think Liverpool made some really bad decisions for the team. As a club, they're solid. If they come back and win the league next year, it won't surprise me. But at the minute, they made bad team decisions, which is very unlike them for a club team that has made some outstanding decisions in the last 3 to 4 years.
What do you mean in regards to, give us an example?
Lovren getting sold, who is a competent centre back. You'd want him now. That's my point. If someone said we could put Fabinho back in midfield, you take that. So selling Lovren, not replacing him. I mean, Lovren's a character in the change room as well. Apparently, he's quite liked. Him and Salah get along really well, which can't be a bad thing. Buying Takura Minamino, maybe not the best decision. Buying Jota, a great decision there. And sorry. Alcantara was a good decision, but a decision which I find very curious was bringing in a recovery coach deep into December. Why was a recovery coach brought in then and not at the start of the season when you knew what you were playing for the rest of the year? Yeah. You're a top club, man. You're not like you're not Burnley, but you're a top club. What are you doing bringing a recovery coach when you know the next 12 months are going to be played like as if it's the next 15 months and that kind of frequency of fixtures? I think certain choice decisions have to be questioned. However, I think this is a one-off for Liverpool, this patch of form or this season, should they come 3rd or 4th, which, again, I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're just in a really bad run of form at the minute. Anyway, your thoughts. Sorry, Sham. Been on a rant there a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think those decisions are bad decisions. Just to start where you left it off, I don't think that they're bad decisions necessarily, but Liverpool have made a lot of very, very, very good decisions, and these decisions are not quite as good. And so you can see the impact of those, because there's other teams where, you know, bringing Minamino might have had a good effect, or Alcantara, but Liverpool were a team that dropped 2 points or 5 points on the way to winning the title, you know, and then whatever other points they lost after that was there. That was the thing. So they're an elite team that sort of come back to the pack a bit because of the decisions. It's a surprise because they got a lot of things right. But I mean, you look at it was funny watching the game, because I haven't had this thought in a while, but I was just thinking, you know, Liverpool could use, say, a Cavani up front, or they could use a Pogba in the midfield. I've not, for the longest time, I've not ever thought that United player should be in that Liverpool team. You know, man for man, Liverpool are a better side than United. As much as we talk about United have good players individually, Liverpool players are better. But I was just thinking, you know, imagine if Paul Pogba was playing instead of Shaqiri, or their Cavani up front. Would that have made a difference? And it just struck me that I was thinking that it reminded me a bit of a game. I don't know if you remember under Moyes, where United played Fulham.
Fulham. 81
crosses in during the game.
I remember that game so well.
Was sending a lot of crosses in from wide areas that Burnley, you could see with Burnley, they sort of had that back. The two wide players dropped in and made that back six. I'm talking about the wide midfielders dropping back. Yeah, this line is 6 at times, so sometimes 4, sometimes 6. They were happy to just get those crosses in all day. Where City have done quite well is they've got the ball to the byline and knocked it away and created different angles and got it away from the keeper, flashing across the 6-yard box. Liverpool were not doing that. Trent was crossing from quite orthodox positions, kind of where you would just sort of out wide, around sort of where the 18-yard box is. Those types of crosses. The biggest chance I saw was Mane actually getting the ball and running at the byline and then cutting it back. And it created a bit of havoc in the area. I don't think.
Oh yes.
Came from it, but there was one. So just being direct and getting at the byline seemed to create that. And Liverpool didn't really have a lot of that in the game. And it surprised me as well that they just didn't try different things, like, you know, switching Salah and Mane, for example, or putting Trent in the midfield and switching and putting someone else out wide, or you know what I mean? Like, it just seemed like they were trying the same thing over and over and over, and it just didn't quite click. I think that as the game got on and on, Liverpool probably started the second half looking better than they did at the end of the game. I think the better chances came earlier in the second half. And in regards to the penalty, it's a funny one, because Alisson was ropeable. As soon as that was given, he went at the referee. At the end of the game, he went at the referee again. Klopp had to pull him away. He was not happy at that decision. He did not touch the ball or the player at the point in time that the player kicked the ball and flicked it over him. But it was that follow through. And I think the issue was that you could see, I think it was Barnes, he said, right? He sort of, his leg that had kicked the ball came down his right leg, and just, did the thing that players do nowadays and left it to trail, and the contact was made, and the other leg got cleared up by Alisson as well. It didn't feel like a penalty. The commentator on the feed that I was watching said that was a kind decision. And that's kind of where I sat in it. You see them given, but you'd be like, oh, okay, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. I do agree with that.
Yeah, it's funny with Liverpool, because I was looking at their goals, the statistics in terms of players who scored goals. So Liverpool last season had 9 players who scored 4 or more goals. This season, the only players who've scored multiple times are the front 3 and Jota. So they're the only players who score multiple times. In particular, it's funny, Mane got 18 goals last year. He's only got 6 this year. And we talked a lot last year about Mane getting heavy goals late in games, being that valuable heavy player who scores heavy goals. And Salah's got 13. He had 19 last year. Mane had 18 last year. He's got 6 this year. And that's not to criticize Mane. You know, it's just showing that he's not quite at the level that he was last year, and how him being at that level made such a difference to that Liverpool team.
I said it. I remember I was watching with a German friend of mine who is a Munich fan two seasons ago, on the way to Liverpool winning the Champions League. I could be wrong, but I think they had a deficit against Munich in the first leg, and they went on to beat them, smashed them in the second leg. And I remember saying to him that I thought Mane was Liverpool's most important player, and then it kind of backed itself up last season when he was scoring. You know, I always talk about the value of the goals. If you score 10 goals a year and it's got you, literally those 10 goals get 30 points, each individually get you 3 points. That's brilliant. You're the best player in the world. How many goals of that 13 that Salah scored is that valuable anymore? Or Salah, I don't know. I have to go look.
Liverpool scored 8 goals in their last 5 games. 7 of them came in one game.
If United go on,
the weight of goals is quite an important thing.
Absolutely, and if you assess Cavani, for example, Cavani directly has brought 9 points to United from his goals. I think he scored 4.
I think 5 with the one on
the Everton game, Southampton game, and arguably the Fulham game yesterday, because he scored the equalizer to. So he puts points on the board. Now that's Cavani. He's not a United man per se. He's a guy who's come in ready built. He's a world class striker. So is Mane. So the point, I have another point I wanted to make actually. So we'll just move from that for a second. So yeah, 8 goals in 5 games. Was that what you said? 5 goals in 8 games. Excuse me.
Oh, Liverpool scored 8 goals in their last 5 games, but 7 in one game.
Yes, correct. Sorry, yes, including Palace. The point I was thinking of was, I guess before we move on, the last 2 points here. Trent, when you grow up playing a certain position, like Trent grew up playing that kind of number 8 or number 6, I think. Am I right to say that? 8 or 6? I think the Gerrard position. Yeah, I think. When you don't have an intuition playing a certain position, when plan A or plan B maybe goes out the window, you don't have a plan C. Players who are very intuitive in their own positions can make things up as you go along. I don't know how else to explain it, but when you're so good at a position because you played it all your life, new variations of that position come in very, very naturally. And Trent doesn't seem to have that variation. In the same way, Wan-Bissaka doesn't have the variation, because Wan-Bissaka is not a right back; he's a tackling winger, so he doesn't have variation when you're not. There's no plan B for Wan-Bissaka as well. I'd like to see Trent. I think a good point you made was that perhaps the plan B could be Trent going in the middle. I wonder if Liverpool have a full back, a right-sided full back. I don't think Liverpool's suited for a back 3, so I wonder if they have a replacement for him. And would that make a difference putting him in right back? Putting him in the center of midfield alongside. Thiago,
particularly if midfield's a bit short, which with Henderson and Fabinho out, the midfield does look a bit lacking in a bit of that sort of quality.
Absolutely, and I think this all does come down a lot to Van Dijk in personality, in being able to press more, in just general confidence of the team. I think they're a team massively short in confidence, and just to finish off my point here, Spurs, Arsenal, City, West Ham, Brighton, and Leicester.
They're playing United in the FA Cup, and then Spurs. So this next
United,
week,
United, Spurs, City, Arsenal, West Ham, Brighton, Leicester. That's the next.
I think Spurs pass Liverpool if they win that one.
Liverpool go down to 7th. Can go down to 7th if they lose the next 2 games. Yeah.
So there's a bit of a gap. There's a bit of a gap between Liverpool and the teams below them, but the teams have games in hand. So I think Liverpool actually.
Yes, Everton have 2 at the minute.
Tottenham and there's one more there.
West Ham. Don't forget West Ham, Sean. They're above Chelsea. We've done enough criticizing Liverpool.
I just want to say one more thing about the game. Burnley are now 6 points clear of the drop. They've actually done really well. They pushed United. They beat Liverpool. They'll be very happy where they are. They're equal in points in Newcastle. That bottom 3 is starting to look very entrenched.
Burnley's an interesting club. Or a team like Burnley is that you're going into every season with very minimal resources, and I wonder how they grind out results. I find it very interesting. I find Sean Dyche or Scott Parker, or even a David Moyes back in Everton in his early days, I guess, how these kind of managers are so overlooked in the grand scheme of things, because perhaps you could argue that their man management, getting people out for games, like, we're not going to win anything in the next 5 to 10 years. We may win the League Cup if we get lucky with the run. I find that very interesting, and to set teams up, they are up for these are the games they kind of live for. Ashley Barnes is going to get text messages and DMs on Instagram and messages on Twitter thanking him from all fucking corners of England. I'm telling you, man. So these are the games they live for, and I think they did brilliantly. Say what you want, they parked the bus, but
they played to a plan, and the plan worked.
Like, if you're going to park the bus, they built a bus and parked it, so they did both sides of the job. So well done to Burnley.
Put up a parking lot, yeah.
Yeah. Well done to Burnley, and we'll move on. This leaves Liverpool of 4th, only 6 points behind United, 7 points if City win their game in hand. It's not the end of the world for Liverpool by a long shot.
I still think they'll finish second. I had them second at the beginning of the season. I still think they'll finish second.
Absolutely. And if they go on to win the league, they just have a sudden upturn in form, which the next 5 games is a great time to upturn their form because they're playing the hardest teams. You're switched on 10x more. They just will look back. If they come second, fall short to City, they're going to look back at these 4 games and just go like, if we had beaten Southampton, if only we had scored that, Divock had scored that goal. So yeah, look, it's fun to poke fun, but at the end of the day, they're still a dangerous team. So move on to United.
They're a good team in a difficult moment.
In a difficult moment, yeah. I was just getting my Fulham notes up here. So United played Fulham 2-1. A very nervy game to start off. Ademola Lookman scoring a very nice goal, very nice through ball. And for the first time in a long time, he went 1-0 down, and I was like, yeah, we're going to score. We're going to win the game still. It's just a lapse in concentration. A standard in between Maguire and Shaw, lapse in concentration.
Maguire sort of drifts over. For some reason, he sometimes defends like Shaw's not there at all. And he goes in half-mark Shaw space.
Shaw hasn't.
I don't know why he does it, but he does it.
I was just going to say, Shaw hasn't been there for 6 years, Shaw.
And sometimes he's been injured as well. But
there is. I look back at that goal.
There's a gap that goes because Maguire moves. Lockman drifts in. Pogba's going. What's going on?
Yeah, I was just going to say the Pogba. Yeah.
And Pogba sees it. The Fulham player, whoever passes it to Lockman, sees it. Some of the commentators, I saw Hargreaves and Owen, and they were sort of putting it on Bailly. And I get it, but I still think Maguire was a bit more at fault. He's positioning sometimes, and he runs into Shaw a fair bit as well. He didn't this time, but that communication between those two is funny. It's weird.
Yeah, that goal was a little bit of. I'd say I would put Bailly, Maguire, and Pogba in that fault because there seemed to be a lack of communication. Who was tracking that man?
Sometimes so who do you think? Like I hate saying this, but if you have to put it on one over the others.
I'd say it was probably more Bailly because it was Maguire's blind side. It's Pogba's the number 8. Bailly has the direct look on him. Yeah, if you had to put
even if Bailly just goes, Harry,
shoulder,
get back in the spot. You know, I don't think he should be moving over.
Bailly strikes me as the
but have the chat. Yeah.
Bailly strikes me as the silent Sicario type. I don't think he says much on the pitch. I think he just kills people. Like, have you seen the movie Sicario with Benicio del Toro? And he's quiet. He goes around killing people. That's what Bailly is. And then obviously later on, Bruno looks. I mean, if there was a play that looked off, was Bruno. He did 10 things wrong, but he did one thing right, and that was a nice little cross into the box, parry up at the keeper. Cavani scored the goal. And then the game finished off with what was a beautiful, it was World Cup Pogba, I would say. That was, I mean, the last 3 or 4 games, you're just thinking like, where is this Pogba?
Yeah, that's the Pogba United bought. Yeah.
And, I don't know if I'm hopeful to say, but you just get the feeling the contract could be on the table. This could all just been a ruse by Mino Raiola, the ultimate motivator. But
I get the people being a bit cynical though. He's only playing like this to get the contract. The reality is, Barca and Real won't buy him just given the wage that he'll want. Both of those clubs have said that both of those clubs would have to sell to get someone in. So I don't really see where he's going, and he won't play for another domestic team. So yeah, it's kind of like the Ozil Aubameyang situation where you kind of want him to sign, but then you don't want him to sign till the end of the season because his performances might drop before he signs.
Because you just want everything to stay as it is,
Yes.
Just stay as is.
We'll feel contract, but in June. Yeah.
It might be the first time fans are saying we'll talk in the summer. As most players say that, the summer fan will be saying we'll talk in the summer. So not much. Once United got the goal, or even once Fulham scored, they didn't really look much of a threat, which is nice to see once in a while. From United, a team that the last 3 or 4 years have been quite bad in defense. In general, not bad in defense, but just a team that kind of lacks confidence. And you're right. I think when I do look at yesterday's game, you are thinking, Liverpool could use a couple of United players, which I haven't said in a long, long, long time. I don't think there's much to say about the Fulham game. Couple of good performances from Cavani. I thought Shaw has just upped his level. it's a funny thing. Shaw, 3 months ago when Tellers came in, he said before Tellers came in, we need another left back. We need competition for our places. If not, things will drop. And he's benefited directly. A man who's got the most approachable body in football is now one of the best performing players of the season. I like it. I like what Shaw's done.
The worst rig. He's got the worst rig.
He does. The only time he's looked really fit was when he was injured, and I think he started doing a lot of crunches, and he had these abs, and he showed off on Instagram. I remember really well, and I was thinking like, oh man, Shaw's lost weight. Here we go. But it didn't. Nothing really happened until I guess the last year he's been good. The last few games he's been really, really good. You feel like I can't believe I'm saying this, but that Southampton kind of form is coming back. I mean, can you even refer to that form? I don't know.
He's been one of the better players, and there's been games where I thought that Tellez might play, but those games Shaw has actually played and done well. There's been individual players doing well. I've got a concern about United's fitness. It was about the 77th minute I saw it, so I noted it down when it happened. They won a corner, and you could see about 5 United players just standing on the halfway line, and they just started trotting over, and I thought, oh, they're exhausted. They're absolutely gone. And from about that point, Fulham actually started getting in the game more. United need to close games out better. I think the fatigue doesn't help. Ollie makes his subs quite late. I think he just likes he made the subs in the right time in the sense that they got the result. But you wonder, is he making the subs too late? The guys clearly look exhausted. And they're inviting that pressure, and because they're fatigued, they're not dealing with it as best as they could. And Fulham could have equalised.
I forget about that.
Headed it into Bailly, and it wobbled past the post. I actually thought it went in. Like it was that close.
Oh, so did I. Yeah. I thought it went in. Yeah. Go on. You go. Since we're talking about fitness, I'll just quickly go. You are 100% right. I think there is a fair point of that, which it did slip my mind because I didn't write it down. But it is a bit of a contrast from the start of the season where United were going with this late flurry of goals, which we both pointed out. And I think I'm still kind of expecting that to happen, but I don't think it's going to happen for a few, from this to the end of the season where they're going to go get 3 or 4 goals. Games have to be won in the meat of the game, until about 60th, 70th minute. That's where games have to be won for United right now.
And Pogba has scored against West Ham, against Fulham, and against Burnley. All these goals were around the 60 to 70 minute mark. And the funny thing is, you look at Liverpool losing to Burnley. If they'd scored a goal, that would have killed the game off. But they didn't. West Brom did the same thing as well. They equalised quite late because the game was still there and something could be gotten out of it. West Brom and Burnley scored against Liverpool late-ish because they still felt that there was something there and kept going. If you can kill it off,
and
that's the situation. So the comparison in those moments and how Pogba has made a difference with United and Liverpool just struggled to kick on a bit. I said Mane, but it's the team in general that's struggling to just kill off the games and invites pressure, which makes them drop points.
And for me, my last point about United was that I think the team still lacks belief, not a game by game belief. I think game by game, I think Bar City, the Sky City from last week will be there a little bit in their minds when they do play them in a few months' time. Excuse me. But when I say belief, I mean a grand scheme of things belief. The way Leicester has belief, like Leicester say, if we play like this at the end of the season and we don't win the league, we've done our best. But I think United know themselves, but they don't know how to get to that second, third, fourth gear. That's why they didn't win. That's why they didn't beat Liverpool. United should have beaten Liverpool last weekend. I'm not talking about the Pogba, Bruno. I'm talking about the fact that at the minute we are a better performing side. We have players. We have a front 3 or a front 2 that could have been better than Henderson and Fabinho, as in could have bettered them on the day. But the belief is not there because Liverpool is a brand name right now. Liverpool is what United were 10 years ago, what Chelsea was 20 years ago. So I'd like to see United get a bit more belief about themselves. Burnley have the belief because it's a kind of, we have to win this game or we're not gonna play in this league next year. So
it's interesting that you suspect with United, the players know they're not playing quite to their ability, and I don't know if that's the confidence. Like when Liverpool were going through winning 26 out of 27 games, you look at Leicester, you look at Burnley as examples. They know that they knew, and I'm referring to Liverpool last season, but they knew that they were playing at their best, and that just naturally gives you confidence. United are getting results, but I think that there's a sense that they can be playing better, and that's sort of why the confidence isn't there.
Yeah.
I'll ask you.
It's kind of like just to your point. Just hold that in your brain, but it's kind of to your point. 2 seconds. It's kind of like a student who's failed every single year of school and go like all of a sudden he's just going, okay, I just want to pass the next step. I just want to, you can get your, you can get into 60%, 70%. You can go for your A's and your B's, but he's just like, I just want to pass. And like, yeah, sure, you're going to get to the next grade, but anyway. So what are you going to say?
No, yeah, one 5-year pass at a time. Yeah. But, I was going to say, this is a general question, and you could say on one side you've got a Guardiola team, you've got Man City, you've got Barcelona, right? And the other side you've got this United team. So the Barcelona City style is it has movement and players moving into positions and passing that creates a natural incision into the other team. And then the players profit from that by scoring or assisting or whatever it is. You look at United, they get a lot of their games now. There's long periods of time where the two centre backs are sitting in the halfway line, and you can see in front of them is Matic and Pogba or Fred and McTominay, and the wingers are wide, and the strikers are there, and Bruno's there, the fullbacks are there. There's a structure, and the ball's moving, and it moves across the pitch, and they have a goal. But the movement is not creating the incision that they want. We talked last season a bit about the United goal, that sort of, the three-way player on the edge of the box, one passes, one cuts through, that sort of thing. It's not really happening this season. They are, and this might be a lean towards why they're lacking a bit of confidence. They are relying on magic moments from magic players. Whereas if you look at Barcelona, for example, or the Arsenal Invincibles team, a lot of the Arsenal Invincibles goals were just tap-ins. The 3 meters, open goal and tapped it in. That's not a beautiful goal, but all the movement before it makes it a beautiful goal. Whereas United, they're relying on Pogba to score worldies to beat teams. So the question is, I don't know if Guardiola has reinvented football that naturally we expect teams to create incision through the system and the way that they play. Or if, I'm just trying to, I was dwelling on this today, like when we think back to the great United teams, were the United teams creating that decision through magic moments and magic players, or through a system that did naturally develop that through pace and through movement and that sort of thing? And I'm just wondering where this team sort of stack up in that regard.
Oh, so this United team, you mean?
Yeah, because they seem to rely on individuals rather than systems.
But Sean, but like I said this last week, right? When you wrap something in philosophy, like when football gets wrapped in a philosophy, it suddenly becomes this, if it's not British style football, it's some sort of beautiful football philosophy. If Wayne Rooney's name was Sancho or Herrera or Hernandez or De Silva, he'd be the best player who ever lived. I just think when it doesn't look sexy, you start to overthink these. Not you, but one would start to overthink these things. Look at Leicester. Let's look at Leicester. You take out Vardy, Mahrez of that team. That's all their special moments gone. And then you have Kante doing the work in the midfield. You take out of that United team, arguably you took out Rooney out of that team. That's a lot of unselfishness not there anymore. So I think United do have to shift away a little bit from relying on, let's say, Rashi, a lot of Fernandez, these 1 or 2 moments from Cavani. Yeah, you do have to lean away from it. But if you look at it now, they've lent away from Bruno. And yes, Pogba should have been performing 3 years ago. But suddenly Pogba stepped up. And there is elements of this team. The team can do it now. It's not quite there, but there is elements of it coming out. So,
and I feel a bit that's why Van der Beek's struggling a bit, because he's not got the teammates to jive and play his way with. He's got to figure that out. It's interesting. Maybe it's just more that balance is not there. Because even with Barcelona's style, you had Eto'o chipping the keeper from 30 meters out. You had Xavi lifting the ball over plays. Like he flicked the ball up to his shoulder and flick it over. So maybe it's just that balance between system and individual brilliance. And maybe United are leaning too much one way. Just need to get it a bit right. I think that the systems there are good. I just think they're a bit predictable, and teams have picked up on it. So they're leaning a bit more on that, Pogba special or Bruno special to win a game.
Yeah, let's shift into City, because I just had a point here. You talk about football style. You talk about Pep. I don't really think Pep did an amazing job at Barcelona. He inherited 7 or 8 players who knew exactly what he wanted to do. Bayern Munich, he had the best team in the league. I can't hear you.
He won the Champions League with Mascherano.
Yeah, but he inherited 7 players who knew where. I'm getting to a point where I think potentially, sorry, different frequencies, but I think potentially this is one of the best Guardiola teams you may see, because there's a huge Guardiola imprint on this current Man City team. His achievements and his ability haven't necessarily been hand in hand, because he's been given a lot, and he's done very well with the lot that he's given. It's kind of like a rich kid becoming a billionaire. It's like, well, you got the $1 million loan from your dad, and now you're the president of the United States. It's not that amazing. But what he's done with his team now, he's gone and bought Stone. He bought Stones, didn't he? Yeah, he went and bought Stones. He went and bought Diaz. Since he created Zinchenko into a left back from a center mid. Same with Cancelo. Blah blah. And the list goes on. Gundogan putting him further forward. There's something about this City team which it's maybe the most Guardiola you'll ever see, and I quite like it. I have a certain respect for City now, because a respect in terms of the Empire Strikes Back, that kind of metaphor that you said, where you just feel this is pure Guardiola, and that's why it seems the scariest. And so they went on to win 2-0. Yeah, sorry, 2-0. Questionable goal. So, what do you think about what I just said? And also, we'll get to and then talk about the goal after that.
We made the point at the beginning of the season that this is now the longest Guardiola's had to spend at a club, and he's often joined clubs and turned everything over and made it successful. He's not had to rebuild after that. And we've spoken before in here about why Ferguson was the greatest, is that he rebuilt great teams constantly. Guardiola's never had that challenge. And so I think the respect that you're feeling for Guardiola, which I agree with, is because he has rebuilt a team,
Yeah.
Not every signing's the greatest, Ferguson bought Jemba, but he had to...
And Bebe.
And Bebe. I was thinking Bebe, I didn't want to say it, but the fact that he's rebuilt the team, the fact that he's gone through tough periods, I think it might be respect from that, because as much as winning a league is hard, we haven't seen Guardiola really go through a difficult moment, I don't think he's ever had that, except his last season at Barcelona, and he left after that. He didn't rebuild the team. So
he didn't win the league.
I agree with what you're saying. I think it comes from that. He's doing things that he's not done before, in the sense of rebuilding a team that he had had it gone through a cycle. Now he's starting cycle 2. And they're playing with a confidence and a swagger. And that was a gung-ho game. That was a proper game of football with Villa. Really, the penalty was a really big decision. The whole offside that got Bernardo. I'm saying offside, but the offside incident that got Bernardo the goal. That was a big moment in that game.
Fantastic goal.
Really decided the game.
Fantastic goal.
Oh, great finish. Absolutely.
What a goal. Yeah.
Is he left-footed? He's left-footed, isn't he?
He's left-footed.
But still,
I know, because I love him when
first goal this season.
Playing false 9. His first goal of the season.
Yeah, Bernardo Silva.
Yeah, he has had a quiet season. They brought him in thinking he'll be the David Villa type. Hasn't quite worked out that way, but he's still an outstanding player, though.
Yeah.
Him and Fernandes for Portugal are unbelievable together. And they passed to this guy named Ronaldo.
Who?
According to Pele, not the greatest scorer of all time, but as of this week, the
greatest scorer in competitive matches, because they played a lot more friendlies back then. In Pele's time,
yeah, they did. Yeah. Anyway, so
one story about Pele quickly.
Go on. Yeah.
No. Pele turned up for Santos one day. He goes, "I'm playing goalkeeper," and they went, "What? No, I'm playing goalkeeper." And so he played the game as keeper. He saved the penalty.
Yeah, in his book, he talks about how he was the third choice keeper for Brazil his whole career. He was the third choice to be in goal should the first 2 be injured. It was a weird thing that he apparently loved to be a keeper. He just happened to be better at scoring goals.
I always think because I think goalkeepers, because you're defending a goal, you have a certain awareness around goals. So when you go out in the field, because I've got a keeper background, you do see goals and angles, and I could score goals that people didn't quite see. So it's just because I was used to being in the box, and rather than me panicking about it, you're thrilled to be in the other box, but you're not going to concede a goal, so you think a bit clearer.
It was the same when I played AFL for 2 years in year 11, year 12. I played for Scarborough, and there were things that I would do on the pitch, like when I would soccer, like when we say soccer ball in AFL, but when you soccer a ball, and I used to do that thing that Ronaldo does, where you cut it through your legs behind. Do you know what I'm trying to say? When Ronaldo's dribbling and he chops to change direction. I used to do that in AFL when I would soccer the ball and the chops change direction, and the other player would just go the other way, and I just pick the ball up, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, what's he done?" Like, oh, you just see things differently.
Yeah.
Because playing goalkeeper is a whole different sport in itself almost. Anyway, sorry, we've diverted there. By the way, I think if I'm not wrong, I got to go check this out. But the word Pele has the same meaning and intent as the word negrito that our boy Cavani said the other day. Pele actually means like little black one, something like that.
I think his nickname was the Black Pearl. No, that's Eusebio. Sorry.
Pele means like little black kid or something in his specific Portuguese dialect. Okay, coming back to City. So this leaves City in the strongest position in the league right now.
I just typed it up. Apparently, Pele translates directly to skin.
Yeah.
The word
what? Sorry.
The word Pele in English means skin, and Pele was fairly dark compared to his Brazilian teammates. So maybe it's something to do with that. Yeah.
So this leaves City in.
Sorry. Let's get onto this controversial penalty.
Yeah. So the penalty for me, obviously, I think we both had the same reaction to this. At the moment in time, it seemed unjust, seemed very unfair. But the fact of the matter is, Tyrone Mings touched the ball, and then it transitioned. It's now a second moment in play, so it's a transition in play. Unfortunately, it's not an offside. I think it was Rodri who got the ball. If I'm not wrong,
Rodri who won
if he did intentionally, well played. If he didn't, look, City got lucky. And these are the kind of things that win you league titles. 2 years ago, when City won it, I think it was the game before Vincent Kompany's goal against City. They played Burnley, and there was a goal line clearance by City.
Yeah.
And it was. I mean, I don't even think it was that.
It was 2 millimeters or something, right? Yeah.
So you look back and you go like, these are the kind of games that just push you on for the next game a bit more. Who I got to go see who they're playing next. But what did you think of it? I don't think it differs much from what I'm saying, right?
Like when you watch it to the naked eye, there's a sense of injustice, and the Villa manager getting sent off probably adds to that, frankly. Just that sense of injustice. It was interesting.
Oh, Dean Smith got sent off, yeah.
Yeah. I was watching the feed here with Michael Owen on comments, and so they had Dermot Gallagher was one of the old Premier League referees, and they asked his opinion on it. And then as soon as Michael Owen heard it, said, "Okay, if that's the rule, that's fine, but the rule should be scrapped." He was quite adamant on this point.
Yeah. Well done, Michael.
It was interesting because the referee said basically that because say as the keeper, for example, if someone shoots at me and I parry it, and it goes to the player's offside and taps it in, it's offside because a passage of play is not yet started. My parrying the ball is not a new passage of play starting. What the referee is saying is that the moment that Mings decides I'm going to try and trap this ball, the new phase of play is started. So the fact that the referee was in an offside position at the time of the header by the other City player, I forgot who it was. He was offside then, but he goes back to not being offside because Mings makes the decision to go for the ball. So the fact that he touches him, whether it's his foot or his head or his nuts, I don't know. But the reality is that when he makes that decision, it resets the umpire's definition of offside.
What's his name? Martinez, the keeper Martinez. There, if he's not telling Mings, there's a player behind you, leave it. Because if he leaves it, if Mings leaves it, that's offside. Let's say he leaves it, lets it run, and then goes for the chase. That puts him in a better position to get the ball. I wonder if he got a shout. Some players get a shout and they decide to do what they want to do anyway. But I'd be curious to see if
Martinez gives him a shout, or any of the other defenders.
I say keeper exactly because of the best view. Yeah.
That was interesting to me. I also saw this was on Twitter, and this is from the FIFA rules, right? And my page has just reset it this second. But it basically says a player in the offside position at the moment the ball is played or touched is only penalized on becoming involved in active play by interfering with an opponent by challenging a player for the ball. So what it's saying basically is this is something on Twitter that got a lot of discussion, that particular cut from the particular rule. And I get it in the sense that if he's offside and then he's still interfering with play, you judge him offside. But the reality is, and this is something that's quite hard to digest because it doesn't quite make sense. But it's kind of like Inception. Like the umpires decided when Mings makes the decision to go for the ball, that's when it resets, not when he touches it, and certainly not when he has control of it. Because if even if Rodri wasn't there, he'd probably still take 2 touches, one on the chest and one on the foot to bring it under control. So it's not reset when he takes control on his foot or his thing. It's the inception of the thought, I'm going to challenge. So it's difficult, and it probably needs to be changed because it doesn't quite make sense. But that's kind of that's what I've heard of why the decision is supposed to stand.
But is there an echo, Sean?
I don't know. I have a fan on. I'll turn it off.
No, is that an echo in me?
No, you're fine.
Okay, it was echoing in my ears. Never mind. Well, what does make sense, because if he, let's say he does a dummy, he does a latte, so he goes and it runs through his legs. Yeah. Is Rodri still offside?
If he, yeah,
got the intent.
Exactly, yeah.
It's not offside.
No, the idea is that, see, for me, that's interesting because there's a difference. You could argue that there's a difference between him stepping away and letting the ball go and doing a Lutzit, which is our word for a step over. There's a difference because you could argue that he's playing the ball by doing a step over, right? So if he leaves the ball, yes, offside. If it's a step over, I don't know. I would say they take such a literal interpretation of interfering with play that the new play hasn't started yet. That's what I would say, because they're interpreting everything so literally. He's not.
This ties into the old passive offside rule. I think they scrapped it back in 04 or 05, maybe 06.
So it's a very strict interpretation of passive. So I would suspect that a step over would be treated as not interfering with play because you haven't touched the ball. But I think it should be. That makes more sense. But I'm talking about the rule is versus what makes sense, because sometimes it's not the same thing, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, sure. I mean, it's the best league in the world. This is why it is a talking point every fucking week. Look, and it was a great goal by Silva. I mean, you got to finish. End of the day, as I think Gary Neville always says, you got to finish the goal at the end of the day. It doesn't matter what rule you break, you're finishing the goal. It was a beautiful finish. It's what Bernardo Silva, does on FIFA. You know, that beautiful finesse goal that he can do. They go on to score a penalty, which was, I think, quite a clear cut from memory.
Yeah.
And as we said, leaves City in a massively strong position to take charge of the destiny, especially in the next few weeks. They play. Let me just get these pictures up again. I just had it. They play West Brom, Sheffield, and Burnley. I just have a stat for you because I love. Whenever I think of City Burnley, when I think of City Burnley, I only have a memory of, oh fuck, like they're gonna get tapped. So I went and looked it up. The last 10 fixtures. So in the last 10 times Burnley and City have played, City have scored 4 or more goals against them 6 times. In the last 11 times they've played, they've scored 3 or more goals 8 times. So Burnley, in 3 weeks' time, we talk a lot about Burnley. Burnley just can't seem to stop conceding against City, and I don't think they will in a few weeks' time.
That's City an interesting one. That might be City, one for any other score. Yeah,
it was very intuitive thinking. Like there's some teams you just associate. There's 2 teams you associate some sort of something with. For a long time, I associated back in the day. I associated Blackburn with the bogey for United because they just had a lot of trouble beating them, but not anymore. So City, as I said, next 3 games. I expect them to get 9 points out of the next 3 games. I don't expect any other way. And then they go into a difficult moment, as we would say. So they have a really tough run of games, actually. Liverpool, Spurs, a very informed Arsenal, Mönchengladbach, West Ham, and United. So the next few games could decide a lot if United do drop points and if City just maintain cruise control. We wanted to just finish off with the perhaps 3rd title favorites or 4th title favorites at the minute. Leicester City playing unbelievable football.
Played Chelsea off the park. James Maddison getting a goal, and I think Ndidi got the first. Yeah.
Ndidi got the first. So, I mean, the thing about Leicester that I like the most is they go back to basics. They do the basics perhaps better than anyone else can do. They play to exactly what they can do, and they do it well. And look, we had Neil on here a few weeks ago, and he talked about what Rodgers means to the fans. And for a club that went through this huge high and then these incredible lows with the owner passing away, I think they've just built a club now.
Yeah,
you could argue no club has done what they've done now since United with Ferguson. Built it up from the ground up, got the basics right, got the scouting right. The scouting is unbelievable, man. Mahrez, Kante, Fofana. This is on the last 5 years. It's unbelievable. Sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say, like, we talk about like Liverpool had Heysel and Hillsborough, United had Munich. How tragedy can help build a football club. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like saying it because it makes death sound like less than what it is, but it can provide opportunity. And like with United, even now, 60 years later, we still talk about it and how they had to really go and build everything from scratch. And Leicester have gone through that, and it's amazing how it seems to give them something that no one else has. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was almost as if they won that title out of nowhere, and they could have just left that, and they could have been like Blackburn Rovers, and like you never hear of them ever again. You know, Blackburn won one title 25 years ago, and they're now Div 2. But you feel there's something more to Leicester than that. They had literally had to build again because of what happened to them. And like you said, they play proper football. Rodgers deserves a lot of credit for what he's done there. Like I said, I still feel that weakness is an over-reliance on Vardy. But the structure and the core of the team is good. Like if your team played with that identity, you'd be happy. Whatever team you are, if your team played like that, you'd be pretty happy.
Yeah. No, they picked Chelsea off the park. Like, we have to touch on Chelsea real quick. A lot of mixed opinions, and my brother being one of them, saying that Lampard should be given the sack. And it's not just him; it's many people are saying that.
He's not the only one.
No. I'm just saying because we were talking to him the other day. But he was saying that the other day on our group chat. But what do you think's going on at Chelsea? We talked about let's not talk about the Werners and the habits, like, but just in general. Let's give overlying principles, I guess. Like, what do you think's going on at Chelsea? And do you think the sack should be given to him? Because if they got to sack him, they got to sack him now. There's no point waiting to the end of the season. But should they sack him? Yeah.
Either keep him now. Either sack him now, or you move forward with him. I think it's interesting that they brought all these players in, but they haven't really had time to adjust, and they've had to adjust in this most difficult of seasons. And there's a lot of young players who are still figuring out how to play in England. There's you question it's not a question of ability, so you start questioning things like leadership, like the intangibles, and they seem to have. There's times you see it a bit with Arsenal, you've seen it a bit with United over the years. They seem to play with this fog in their head. Things aren't so clear. Things look muddled. They're lacking confidence, and it all just sort of builds and gets into this cycle. So the easy solution in that situation, get rid of the manager. If they don't think Lampard can fix that, they need to get rid of him. If they think he can, they need to give him not half a season. You need to give him another year to fix it. If you think that he is the right person to do it. The worst thing you do is you sack someone, they go to a major tournament, and that person gets no preseason with a whole bunch of young players who've coming off varying holidays with the international tournament. So you got to kind of make the change now, and in a sense, write the league off and focus on Europe and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where are they in Leeds United now? When they sacked Klopp in '74, they wrote the league season off because they had a shocking start to the league season. They didn't play any Champions League games. They made the Champions League final that year, the year they sacked Klopp.
Well, I mean, Chelsea's done that, haven't they? They won the Champions League with
the interim manager,
Di Matteo. Well, it wasn't he. I think he was. Yeah, he was interim at the time. Then he got the contract. I mean, you have to give him the contract a month later. They won the the Europa League with Benitez. Made the Champions League final. Avram Grant. They seem to have a knack of interim managers doing well.
If you sack Lampard, you're writing the league off, and they're 8th or something. So it's probably justified. But the reality is, you're focusing on Europe. Then you're focusing on developing players. Maybe it takes the pressure off the players. The question is, who would you bring in? If you're sacking Lampard, you got to bring someone in. Would you? I mean, you can't go John Terry. As interesting as that would be, because he's probably got more of a background in terms of being able to get that defense sorted out.
I was just going to touch on that. Is that what really is Frank Lampard's credentials for the start of the job? I don't think he should be sacked now, but the credentials which he brought to the job 2 years ago was he wasn't going to make noise about the transfer ban. That was the biggest thing, was that he wasn't going to complain. He was just happy to be there. What has he really done? He had 2 years maybe a year at Derby. He took them at 6th. He finished them at 6th. Some outstanding performances. Like, he had brilliant moments with that team. But
they were good going forward and terrible at the back. Yeah.
I would put him right up against as inexperienced as Andrew Pirlo. Like, what is Pirlo doing in that Juventus job? The difference is they just happen to have 10 more world class players in a slightly easier league. But the inexperience shows Juventus is not top of the league. They're Milan with a very experienced manager is top of the league. Even though, I mean, Juventus won the Super Cup yesterday. But what has Lampard done? I question you compare that to Ollie, who I think being under Sir Alex is one, being under Mourinho is one, but Ollie has done about 10 years of management, failed, and now he's come to United.
Ollie was perhaps under Mourinho?
No, I said if you compare him and Lampard, Lampard's under Mourinho, one of the greatest of all time, same as Ollie. Both won Premier League titles, both won Champions League titles. So the playing credentials are there, but when you talk about management credentials, they're not the same. Ollie's done 10 years of...
Ollie off. Yeah, you won the league title, but it was in Norway, so it doesn't count. I don't like that. I don't think that he struggled in England, absolutely. But he has won league titles. You can't take that away because you don't like the country he won the title in.
You're still solving problems to be the best team in the league. Yeah, granted, it's a diluted kind of assessment. I do agree with some of the arguments there, but there is something you do when you fail. You fail upwards. He did very well at Mulder twice, won the league on 2 separate stints, sandwiched with Cardiff in between, where he failed horribly. You have to give him that fucking relegated the team.
If you give him credit for one thing, you got to give him the debit for the other. Yeah.
So that, and I wanted to talk about that and tie it in with someone like Phil Neville, who just took the Inter Miami job, where he went from he went from the Moyes assistant at Everton in his last year to United, to Valencia with his brother. And then he was assistant to Nuno Espirito at Valencia as well, the current Wolves manager. And then he worked his way into the women's England team. And you kind of look at Phil Neville and you go like, he's kind of set himself up to do well at Inter Miami. Sure, there was a little bit of nepotism with David Beckham owning that team.
David Beckham, he's basically David Beckham's half brother, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I think Gary Neville was the best man at Beckham's wedding, and they're all super close. And there is an element of that, but you're not going to pick a shit manager. Beckham wouldn't make, and the board would make bad business decisions like that. You'd think. So coming back to Lampard, I don't think there's room to sack him, but you have to.
I just want to make this point. The England women players talk a lot about how Neville built the culture of that team. They talk a lot about it. So you question whether Lampard has got that people management experience that you get just from being an experienced manager to get people,
Yeah.
Because you look at that Chelsea dressing room, they say he was a leader, but he also had Terry, Drogba, Cech, and all of those fellas. So I doubt he was a bigger leader than Drogba or Terry or even Cech, maybe even Ashley Cole. He doesn't seem like that sort of character.
Let me propose something. Let me offer you something. Has Lampard ever seen a proper dressing room culture? He's been involved, and I bet my house on this. He's been involved in lost dressing rooms where he's a player, and I can tell you, he's probably part of that lost dressing room with Di Matteo, Benitez, Gus Hiddink, second Mourinho, losing the dressing room. Does Lampard know? And on top of that, he's been part of fucking 5-6 England managers. Without it, because that England team, that golden generation, they hated each other. Professionally, they hated each other. They came to England camps. Chelsea players were in one room, United players, Liverpool players, were all separate. I wonder, does Lampard know what it means to have a dressing room culture? Are those Chelsea players of that generation fit to hold managerial positions? Look at John Terry, hasn't taken that managerial position, doing as well as the number 2.
Drogba has. Drogba struggled a bit, but he's been manager in Canada.
No. He did. I think he was a player manager or player coach. Sorry, not player man. I wonder. That's something that you brought culture, and then you look at Ollie, Phil. Now Gary Neville obviously failed horribly. Steve Bruce, Mark Hughes.
Gary Neville was always going to be interim. I hate that people hold that against him. I think it's because of that 7-0 loss to Barcelona. People hold it against him, but
he very openly says
he was going in to help out. He was not going in as the permanent manager on a 6-year contract like David Moyes at United.
No,
like that.
But coming back to Phil Neville, him and Ollie, for example, probably the 2 best at the minute, 2 best of Ferguson's disciples coming out. Talk about building cultures, and I would argue that they would know better than almost anyone how to build winning culture. They may not have had success at an international level, but you can't doubt their 13 Premier League titles between them. I think that maybe 11 Premier League titles between them. So yeah, look, coming back to Lampard, there's a lot that can be done at Chelsea. They should not sack him. right now, and they should wait. I think until next summer they have to wait because there's not much you can do in the league. So how much further will he fall? I don't know.
You got to question certain decisions though. Like Kai Havertz is a brilliant player, but they spent 70 million quid on him, but they have a lot of attacking options already. Why didn't they go for someone like Declan Rice? They don't have a defensive midfielder. Jorginho is kind of like more of a Pirlo than a defensive midfielder. Kante is more of a high energy number 8 than a defensive midfielder. They had Declan Rice right now, and they'll very easily be able to play that 4-3-3 that he wants. And yeah, you wouldn't be able to get Havertz, but it balances the team out. Sometimes you need to get the right players rather than the best players. And maybe Havertz ends up being a great decision long term. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that when you've got an abundance of attacking players and you need a defensive midfielder and you go buy another attacking midfielder, you've got to question the logic behind that.
Yeah. You get the feeling this is Spurs about 7 years ago when they sold Bale, and they just feel a bit rudderless at the minute. They went and bought all these just below Bale quality players, Etienne Capoue and Lamela and Lucas Moura and all those kind of guys. They just feel a bit rudderless. And when they did buy all those players, they bought a flurry of these beautiful number 10s and wingers in Ziyech and Havertz, and they had Callum Hudson-Odoi and all this, and Mason Mount's the best performing of all of them, and he cost them nothing. I know, Sham, I know I did say they'd win the league, but I think they're not going to win the league.
They might not, actually. They might not.
Yeah. So look, we'll go through the league. We'll finish off there.
I wanted to point out. Have you talking about the league table?
Sorry. I thought you were done. No,
I thought you were done. About the league table.
I was just gonna finish this off.
Aston Villa are 11th. Can you believe that? The good football. I know they've got games in hand, and I know they've got Newcastle this weekend, which is a big game. But my God, how is a team as good as Aston Villa in 11th spot?
Sham, if they win their 3 games, which there's potential, they go up to 4th, man.
I know it's a big if though. Would you rather have the points or the games in hand?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Particularly in a sandwich season. I know they're playing one of the catch-up games this weekend because they're playing Newcastle. Because they're both out of the FA Cup, so they will catch one of those up. But
guaranteed win for them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if they win all those games, and they need some of those other results to go their way. But geez, I mean, they'll be above Liverpool, which is something apparently. But they're that good a team, and they're in the bottom half of the table. Like, that's how crazy the season is.
The biggest problem at Aston Villa is they can't score goals. They can't score many goals in a game. Again, take out the Liverpool game, excuse me. They only have 22 goals for the year, man. Yeah, that's nothing.
It's not a lot.
That's insane.
And they're very overly reliant on Grealish for his incision. They need other options. The other players are all a bit. There's a drop after Grealish to the players around him. I like them, but in terms of the drop in quality, whereas you look at Leicester, they've got Maddison, who I think had a really good game against Chelsea, by the way. He played in the number 8 position, which is not natural to him, but he took the game. Did. Yeah, he played as an 8. He actually said, "I was trying to play like Frank Lampard, like they ghost into the box late and score a goal," which is what he did.
Just hopefully he doesn't manage like Frank Lampard. He just plays like him. It should be fine.
20 years. Yeah, but but the thing is, like, you look at guys around him, Ndidi, you look at Vardy, you look at Barnes, as in their Barnes, not the Burnley one, but you compare those players around the best player to Aston Villa. It's very there's a drop in quality.
The skill differential, if you will, it's huge. It's huge, 100%. And as well as that, Grealish has come off the boil a bit. He started off the first 12 to 15 games just wow. But in saying that, we got to give Villa, Dean Smith the benefit of the doubt. They had a bit of a sticky game yesterday, was it? Yeah, sorry, yesterday and or 2 nights ago. I mean, so we'll see how they go. I think expecting 4 out of those 9 points for the 3 games in hand is fairly reasonable, and that still puts them in kind of Europa League contention, which I think they would have a bit of belief they can go on.
If you told them beginning of the season, they'd be top half to take it.
Absolutely. And that's one thing you have to remember is where they were, and perhaps they overperformed, and now they're correcting. And now in second half of the season, it's all second half of the season, the results. People get tired. the COVID break or the COVID league, I guess the situation is going to take its toll on players. You just never know, man. With who knows? They could come up against a Leicester team in a few weeks that have 7 players out with COVID, and then Leicester play the under-18s team, and all these kind of things happen. So we'll see where Villa goes. So to sum up the league, I guess. So United on top, City second, Leicester, Liverpool, Spurs. City are in the strongest position and the informed team in the league at the minute, followed by Leicester and United. The bottom half, Burnley, doing some wonders, and now I think, the way they're going, Burnley and Fulham, I reckon will end up surviving. I think Brighton will drop into that relegation.
You think Fulham will overtake Brighton?
I think the way Fulham are playing, 3 draws and a win in their last 6 games.
It'll probably come down to the 2 of them. Brighton, I haven't really focused a lot on them. They've been fairly anonymous. Fulham did have a shocking start. They had a shocking start, so they're building well.
Yeah, 3 draws and a win. That's 5 points. 5 times 6 times 7.
A win is 6 points. Yeah.
Yeah. So they probably need 2 wins and 2 draws and 2 losses out of every 6 games for the rest of the season to win. But I think they can do it with Fulham. Anyway, closing thoughts, Sham, and who do you think? Just talking about the next few weeks. Is there something you're looking forward to?
Probably the first thing I'm looking forward to. We don't normally talk about it, but FA Cup this weekend, United Liverpool.
It's very
hard to pick a result because we have no idea who's resting who.
Who's gonna play? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a very interesting one. It's hard to make a prediction. I
just quick question.
Might suit United to just put it to the side and focus on Europa, but you don't want to lose to Liverpool at home, particularly after drawing away. So it's hard to make that as a manager. It's hard to make that decision.
I have one question really quick before we finish off. I think it's a bit of I think there is implications to this game beyond this game. That I think if Ollie comes out with, let's say, a mostly unchanged lineup from Fulham or from the Liverpool game, I think that's a huge statement from Ollie saying, we're off for anything, man. And if Klopp just drops that or puts up the same Burnley team, let's say drops Thiago Alcantara, puts in a Neko,
he rested Salah, so as in brought Salah in off the bench, didn't he? So he was.
But I'm wondering if he's going to rest his big players again, and if he does, for me that means he's kind of going we're a bit worried, not about United, but about how we're going to go in the league if they rest against. There are a few mind games that go into it. Perhaps he's not thinking about it. It might affect the players. Yeah. Absolutely.
Particularly in this season. It's interesting. Like I've said, we talk a lot about resting players, but the players are doing well. They don't want to rest. Get us out there. And we tend to think, but what happens at the end of the season? Well, if everything goes well and you keep going, I always talk about that United team from '99. That is shocking first half of the season.
Yeah.
They just got a massive run. And they just kept playing and they kept winning. And when they didn't win, they drew. And I don't know, sometimes you just have to let them run.
Absolutely. Yeah. For me personally, I'm a bit overstimulated with football, and I'm so excited for the next few weeks. But look, the game of the weekend is going to be huge. I'm excited. 2 weekends in a row.
The game of the weekend. You're talking about Villa versus Newcastle.
Yeah, that game. Yeah, perfect. And that game, I think. I would like to see Donny play, and I would like to see him play well. And that's my player to watch this weekend. Who would you pick from that?
I actually was going to pick the same. I'd like to actually, Bruno needs a rest. And I think you can justify giving Bruno a rest in this game. So I think you put Donny, this is your position. The whole team's going to this is Liverpool. Tear him apart, son. And just give him the opportunity to be sensational. Because I think they're trying to fit him into things rather than build things around him, and I think that you've got to really just let him play, and it might be that way to just get Bruno out of the way just for a game and see if he's worth it. So I hope he plays, because there's no guarantee he'll play, but I hope he tears it up just for his sake. I hope he tears it up. Perfect.
So on that note, what a weekend to come for what a bunch of few games that just happened. We're the 5 Year Bus podcast. If you like what we chat about, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. My name is Sudi. This is Sham. Keep football simple, and as always,